Friends, Josh Tomorrow is the new CEO, and for the first time, I believe we get to see who he really is. Not in the shadow of Bob Iger or Bob Chapek, but as the person who's actually making the calls. I'm going to give you my honest read, what I like, what I'm skeptical about, and the one question that matters the most to me: who is going to be in charge of the Disney parks now? Because there's a vacancy that Josh leaves behind. So if you're watching this on delay, this is a live stream. Skip ahead about 5 minutes. I'm going to say hi to everyone over in the chat, but this will be conducted like a podcast where I've got some different things that I want to talk about. I'll also take a break in between segments to take questions from the audience that are related to tonight's topic, and we'll get going in like 5 minutes or so. Richo's here, even though he's banned. I'll turn a blind eye on the street justice. How is everybody doing tonight? Little bit tired. How's everybody doing tonight? It is hot out there today. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I know I'll save this for when I get going. What's up, Chucky Chicken Cartoons? Such a fun name to say. That one I can actually read. Nathan, hey, loved yesterday's blog. I appreciate that. The where, kind of my own version of the handcrafted series where I went to Todd Shipyard and yesterday went to Wilmington Iron Works. Those are very different videos. And I appreciate everybody who watches them because it's just like, it's one of those things that kind of goes to prove something that's interesting about YouTube is that when you do something original, it doesn't really know how to find an audience for it. So the people that have watched that video and have enjoyed it, I really, really appreciate it because if the comments weren't super positive, it'd be hard to push through on that series. But I can tell that my people are there with me and are having fun sort of seeing the behind the scenes of the original Disneyland. So I appreciate everybody who watched that one. People are excited about the Muppets. That's cool. It'd be interesting to see if they can find some sort of long-term strategy for the Muppets. As an older person, it's been explained to me by people that have kids that the Muppets mean nothing to their children. Because everybody loves the Muppets, and then I had all these parents call me out on one of my videos and be like, "Our kids don't know anything about the Muppets. They don't care about the Muppets. It's for old people." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, then that's a problem." I'll be doing a video on the art buses going away, but I mean, the whole I studied Disneyland's past or predict its future. I've been telling everybody for a long time that the buses were going away, and nobody kind of saw my vision. So I will be for sure doing a video on this channel that kind of explains how I'm reading that. And I mean, my only shock about the buses going away is it feels premature, but maybe they're just priming the pump now, getting that announcement going so people get used to the idea of the buses going away. All right. Good to see everybody over here tonight. Oh, Carl Jacobson. Member for 5 months. Thank you, Carl. I just used the wrong. Carl's been with me for 5 months. And he gets to be the proof of concept for my new theory. Yeah, Carl's on the board, baby. Carl's on the board, baby. This way I don't have to get up. I can just write them out, toss them up on the board. Maybe at some point we'll put a bullseye up there, and we can play a fun game of cornhole, but it's like Brickey's hole. No, we don't want it to be Brickey's hole. Kat is in love with Beth because she's back home from New York. So he's out there. He was in here earlier, but he was just over on my workbench and just messing with all my tools and stuff. I don't have tools, nerd tools, cameras and stuff. Jay Harris. Hey, waiting for my tab at Hearthstone at Grand California, and just wanted to say thank you again for the amazing stories you bring us, dude. Oh, that's awesome. You're at the Hearthstone Lounge and the Grand Californian. Fun fact, a friend of mine completely recreated that bar, like down to every detail in his basement. So it was wild when I got to see his basement. So thank you, Jay Harris, for being a magic key and for chatting. I hope you had a great time at the bar. All right, can I go 2 for 2? Oh, 2 for 2. Oh, Jay Harris, not making it. All right, focus. Sometimes you got to bend them flat. Damn, Jay Harris not going. I cheated on that last one. All right, one more, and then we'll get into our thing. Chucky Chicken Cartoons. Can you save this Q&A? But what is the one thing you'd like to see tomorrow fix, introduce, or complete erase from Disney? Ready for the spicy takes. See, I don't know if people are going to be disappointed. All right, I'm going to save that, Chucky, and I'll get to that later on. So thank you for sending that over. All right. Chucky. Chicken. That's enough. I'll know. All right, let's go. Can I go? Come on, man. This is supposed to stick. This is supposed to be easier. Why are these not sticking? Boom. Okay. Carl's already on the board, right? Carl's already on the board. Wilmington Ironworks vlog was interesting. Thank you so much. I had a lot of fun doing that one. Those folks were really, really nice. And JS Ardone, and then we're going to get into it. JS. Oh, yeah, JS Ardone. That's how my brain processes this one. JS Ardone. Holla. Happy Wednesday, folks. Looking forward to a thorough analysis. Joe Sarduni. Okay, here we go. All right, what does it take to get these to stick consistently? Come on, man. What the? I was testing them out and they were sticking, and now they're bouncing off. Okay, let's jump in. So before we get started here, I just want to kind of lead with this little thing so that I can kind of set everybody's expectations. I don't overly care about this news, and I'll tell you why. Because for a couple of reasons. You know, change takes time. Change often isn't drastic, and a lot of times people think that, you know, something like this will happen and then instantly the world will be different. And I remember getting really, really excited about when Bob Iger stepped in after Bob Chapek went away. And, you know, there were some things that we saw relatively new that kind of refreshed things a little bit. But then it just kind of fell into the overall pattern of, you know, doing what they need to do for their investors. But the other part of this that kind of has me not really wanting to get into this is that one of the things I love about my two channels is, as much as possible, I try to let it be escapism from the outside world. And we live in what I believe are really, really dark times. And it doesn't matter if you think the same way that I do, or you think the opposite of me. That really doesn't matter to me, because I miss the America where everybody could get along. And what you did in the voting booth was your own business. And we weren't so tribal and getting against each other. This whole my team versus your team is ruining the team that should matter, which is Team America. And so this jockeying around who's in charge of the company, for me right now, and maybe it's just because this has already been the longest year of my life and we're only 1 month in, it just feels like the political version of the Disney parks. So I'm going to tell you what my thoughts are tonight. I'm not going to go like terribly in depth with this. You probably already have an opinion. You probably just showed up to see what my opinion is. But overall, this isn't a topic that I'm that excited to get into. It had been requested a lot, so I just want to sort of say it. If anybody asks me in the future, they can go watch the video. But I'm definitely in a more of actions speak louder than words. And so I will be looking for actions. And right now, all we've heard is words. So I think kind of one of the important things to look at and why this moment I believe will matter moving forward in March when Tomorrow actually takes over. And I got some opinions about how they restructured things. That was actually what I was hoping for. But to me, the reason why this video is called "What Kind of," what is the actual what is the actual name of this? Just want to make sure that I get it absolutely correct. What kind of CEO will Josh Tomorrow be? Is because I don't really think I know who Josh Tomorrow is, because he's had the good benefit of standing in the shadow of Bob Iger, who I do believe had moments of being a really good leader. Like his first half, I think he did some really good stuff. Now, I know a lot of people will question the Fox acquisition, and, I still think that there's time to tell on that. They are absorbing the debt. The company hasn't gone belly up, so we'll see where all of that goes. But Bob Iger, love him or hate him, I happen to like him. Notice I said like when I said love him or hate him. I put him in the middle somewhere, like I give him probably a strong B. And that already is going to rub some people wrong, because all of this somehow gets into the culture war, which is everything I try to avoid. But tonight we're going to dip a toe in. But Bob Iger was a visionary, and at least he was able to bet big on his vision. And that is something I respect. I respect people that are willing to step up and bet, gamble, take a swing, do something big. And so far, we haven't seen, as far as I'm aware of, Tomorrow do anything big. Like, I don't know what his legacy is, because he's been very good at kind of being in the shadows, stepping over in the light when things go right. But when Bob Chapek comes around, not it, baby. So I think that he's been exactly what you need to be to make it to the top. A little slippery, a little bit able to be a little bit of this, a little bit of that, charming. You don't get to the top because you're like an extraordinary talent. You get to the top because you're good at playing the game and working your way to the top. So I really think that this is going to be the first time that we will have the moment to truly evaluate him and to understand what it is that he's capable of. So in my estimation, I've met him in the park a couple of times. Seems like a really nice guy. Seems like he loves his job. Seems like he loves Disney. And that's all great. But what is he going to be able to do? And this is the moment where I think that he's going to be standing on his own. However, there is something that I think a lot of people are curious about and have a little bit of apprehension, that there's a notion that because Josh doesn't really know that much about the entertainment side of the business, that Iger might stay around for a little while to kind of help him out with things. And I think for a lot of people, they're looking for the clean break. And I think that I am too. I think that this, if I were going to step into the position, I would want to have full reign to do what I need to do. And I hope that he gets that freedom and doesn't have to kind of do things with his hands cuffed, because then it will be, once again, who is this guy? What is he capable of? Because if Iger's lingering around, then he's still there to also take some sort of blame. So here's what I think that I actually know about Josh Tomorrow. He for sure has a strong brand presence. He looks the part. He talks the part. He's for sure a good communicator. He has the proper posture. Like, if you wanted to make somebody the face of a company, he's got a great face and he's got a great charm and charisma. And I do think that that is ultimately why he got this position, maybe over Dana. That kind of gets into just how difficult the world of business is for women. Because it's interesting to me that if I were making this decision, I would have made Dana the number one, because Walt Disney is a entertainment company, and she understands entertainment and has been around for a very long time. Josh understands theme parks and experiences. And, now that he's out of that spot, who's going to go in that spot? That kind of adds a little bit of a complication to everything. And as I've said, he's definitely associated himself with very successful moments, but he's rarely ever stepped up and admitted any sort of visible failure. Like, he's been a real not it guy when things go wrong. So something to me that's very important when I'm trying to figure out who somebody is visibility and authorship. Like, I respect people to go, you know what? I didn't get this one right, but this is what I learned, and this is why I'm not going to do it again. Like, I actually respect people that fail way more than I respect people that act like everything they've ever done is perfect. See, I value honesty. And I'd be willing to give somebody a second chance because I realize that they learn from that second chance versus always being skeptical of somebody who never ever wants to stand near a failure. So I'm looking for ownership, not just ownership of the wins, but ownership of the timing of the company, where it's going and where it's being. Josh has been very, very good at being near success. I'm looking for him to get a little bit more close to honesty and reality. So, this is where I question making Josh the CEO. I think Dana could have ran it and he could have stayed where he's at because he does understand the position that he's in, and they could have done it in sort of a Eisner, Frank Wells type of position, sort of a co-leadership, which is actually what they've done. They just kind of switched around the co-leadership. And I find that to be interesting, but not shocking because he is charming and it is a man's world. The company's never had a female CEO, and it looks like they're not going to have one now. So bringing back the presidential role and giving that over to Dana, like, you have to make her happy because if she walks, they're in a really, really bad spot. If Tomorrow walks, where's he going to go? He doesn't have the same amount of leverage that Dana has, which to me says why they gave him that position. So when I look at his tenure, it's hard to know what exact role he had in a lot of the projects that have happened when he was around. And I've never really seen him defend anything that's unpopular. I've always just seen him be very good at spinning. And I don't really remember a time that he's taken the heat, but I have seen Iger, I have seen Chapek, and other folks take the heat. So why this matters and why I'm kind of focusing on this story beat is that CEOs, they do not get to curate perception. You inherit a mess. And then you kind of have to clean up that mess and figure out what your vision is. And it's not always going to go right. And so far, he's been able to have what appears to be to most people a good track record of things going right. But that all ends in March because there's now no longer, hopefully, anybody that he can sort of pass blame down. And I think the moment when I really started to be skeptical of his leadership, and I really do hope that he proves me wrong, but 2D23s ago, when they did the jam session at the Honda Center or at the convention center, where they showed up and was like, what could be behind Big Thunder Mountain? I found that to be really, really insulting to the people that did their part. The fans booked the airfare, they booked the hotels, they took the weekend off, they traveled to Anaheim, not an inexpensive place to go. The fans showed up to celebrate, and they gave them some very loose iPad drawings. Now, to his credit, he realized, even though he never admitted it publicly, but he realized that that was a major dropping of the ball. So then 2 years later, he showed up at the Honda Center, bigger stage, bigger production, and he came out swinging. And so I think now, knowing where everything's at, I think the best perception that we have of his vision of where he wants to take the theme park aspect of the company, which is the part of the company that I care about and cover. Not really a movies guy, don't care. But I think the Disney Horizons presentation, I think that's maybe our best indication of Josh's vision, because obviously this decision had been thought about for a while. It had been a grooming process. It had been an audition process. So I think now we can put a lot of the ownership of Cars going into Magic Kingdom, Avatar coming to the Disneyland Resort. I think now we can start to associate some of this as part of the way that he's seeing things. And I'm not as angry as most people are about Cars going into the Magic Kingdom. I understand the beauty and the peace and the Walt Disney aspect of the Rivers of America and Tom Sawyer Island. I also understand that it had been neglected, it had been fallen apart, and it was underused. So instead of looking at that as a negative moment, I'm trying to look at that as Cars, Piston Peak, going to the Magic Kingdom is an interesting chapter because this is the moment where the Magic Kingdom, with Tron a couple years earlier, and now what's happening with Villains Land in the off distant future, but in the nearer future, Piston Peak, this is the moment where Magic Kingdom starts to pull away from Disneyland and fully have its own unique identity as a Disney castle park, but one that is very, very different. So I think that that gives us the read of where things are at and where things are going. But what I'll be watching closely and where I'll dip my toes back into this is what do the first 12 to 18 months look like? Are there big promises? Are there failures? Like, how are just things handled? Who gets promoted? Like, I kind of have a feeling that maybe the current president of Disneyland, the gentleman that I have nicknamed Tommy Mastastic, I kind of have a feeling that he might end up taking Josh's job, and I'll tell you why. Josh was the president of Disneyland, and then he hopped over to being the president or whatever the title is, VP of experiences, which is Disney parks and cruise ship and resorts. And then Kenny P. Rock, who was the president of Disneyland, stepped off to do this new position, kind of working with Disney and the Olympics and sports and all this stuff. Kenny P. Rock, very, very nice guy. Out of all the suits I've ever met from Disney, he is the most down to earth, like man of the people I've ever met. Like Kenny P. Rock, I cannot say enough good things about. Haven't met the new guy, Tommy Mastastic, but he was in charge of Disney Cruise Line. And the part of the company that they're the most excited about is the cruise line. And so for him to go to cruise line to Disneyland, to me says, Tommy, you already know cruise. Now you need to learn parks. We'll put you in Disneyland for a year. You'll understand the operations. Then when Josh sits in the throne, you'll take over Disneyland. I think that that's probably the way they're going. Now, I know a lot of people want somebody like Bruce Vaughn, who's currently in charge of Imagineering, to step up and take that seat. I'll tell you why. Maybe that's not the best thing. As much as it pains me to say this as a creative, whoever's in charge of parks and experiences needs to respect creativity, needs to have an understanding for creativity, but they also need to understand the world of business. Not only making money, but navigating the world of business. See, creatives, we all have a little bit of insecurity inside of ourselves. So sometimes it's easy to negotiate us down because there's a certain amount of self-doubt when you wear your heart on the outside. And to be a creative, to show the world your imagination, to show the world your dreams and your heart, you have to expose more of yourself than your average business person does. So who's in charge of parks and experiences needs to be somebody that knows how to negotiate and fight for what they want. I've yet to really see anybody who sat in that top Imagineering seat and have that kind of positioning. I think Marty Sklar was probably the best person that kind of fits like a full understanding for the creative, you know, his whole concept on the power of a blank sheet of paper, but he was also very, very good at business. Love Tony Baxter, beautiful man, beautiful brain, gave all of us so much joy. He would not be a person that would be good at doing both the creativity and fighting with the bigwigs. So I kind of think that's where it's all going. Who will take that spot? But ultimately, I kind of want to talk about this today and then just wrap it up and move on, because I cannot stand when the culture war gets into Disney. And I cannot understand the misogyny that comes with women in the business place. And I cannot stand when I see comments on my videos that the Haunted Mansion barn didn't work because it was a DEI hire. I don't like that. That's somebody saying that because a minority built a project, the project is a failure. And I don't like that. I don't like go woke, go broke. Like, I hate all of that stuff. And inevitably, when you talk about this stuff, it kind of gets into that world. So My thing is this: Josh seems like a nice guy. He's a charming guy. But just because you're good looking and because everybody likes you doesn't mean that you're the best person for the job or that you'll be great at your job. That being said, I hope he's the best. I hope Josh brings us a beautiful, bright tomorrow. I hope now that everybody's out of his way and he's staying in the shadows and he's taking his chances, that he's in a moment where he can literally give us an unbelievable future in the parks. I hope the cruise ships grows. I hope Dana's successful for the films. I am rooting for these people to be successful. But what I'm not rooting for is the culture war and the fighting and infighting on the fans. Like, if you want to argue with me about what you think the best thing about Tomorrowland is, let's go. You want to fight with me about why Tron should be in Disneyland? I'll fight with you all day long, because that's a fight between brothers. That's a fight between two people that love this park and go, no, man, I have a better vision of the park. But when people fight about the political stuff and the corporate political stuff, then it gets too personal. And it gets us out of this bubble. I just want to stay in the bubble. So my thoughts are, good luck, Josh. I'm rooting for you. Prove me wrong. And I will always be the first person to admit when I'm wrong. Because you know what? I love being wrong. Being wrong is like failing. When you fail, you learn how to win. And I want to be a winner ultimately. And when you're wrong, it gives you the moment to understand where you were wrong. And that gives you the ability for personal development. So when people comment on my videos and go, I don't always agree with you, I don't want you to always agree with me. I want you to be my friend. I don't want you to be my fan. I want you to watch my videos and go, wow, that's a really interesting viewpoint he has. I don't agree with it, but that's an interesting viewpoint. And it made me think for a moment about my own viewpoint. That's what I'm here to do. I don't believe in I'm right, you're wrong, my team versus your team. I believe in we're all here because we want a little of escapism. We want to talk about this place that when we close our eyes at the end of the night, you can kind of walk down Main Street. You can maybe get to the hub and then you fall asleep in a place where none of this other shit matters. So there's my thoughts. I'll take a couple of questions over here. But other than that, I just want to get back into the parks. I'm glad they figured all this out. I've been hating the debate of it, and I've also been hating how it dips into the culture war. All right. So hopefully I didn't let you guys down, but I mean, that's kind of my overall thoughts on this. JJ McClure says, zero to do with gender here. It's simply that Josh has been far more successful in implementing his goal with the parks than Dana has with entertainment. Okay. Disney brought, see, I don't want to. Disney brought political views into the company when for so long it wasn't about that. See, I hate how this gets into that. I just do. You know, I don't enjoy this stuff. I don't. And I'm not here to censor anybody. I'm not here to tell anybody that they're wrong. Everybody has their own perspective. And the problem is that when we're arguing about Tomorrowland, I don't need to know, and you don't need to know my political things. But when we get into this stuff, you do. And that's why I hate it. This is what I need. This is what I need. Dingus flamingus. I'll fight someone to get Blue Ribbon Bakery cinnamon rolls back in the parks. See, that's a guy that has a political agenda that I can get behind. That's what I'm talking about. Brickey for Disneyland creative director. I will tell you this. I do think that it would be really good if they had a creative director for the parks. I think that would be a really, really smart way to do things. My friend CKB has a funny super chat that she put up here. She says, I'll never forget, quote, seeing Josh at Pride Night, only it wasn't Josh, it was Newsom. I don't know if you guys remember this, but there was a live streamer, really, really nice guy. I think it was like SoCal Hans, I believe was his name. I haven't seen him in the park in a while. And he went up to Josh Tomorrow while he was live and thanked him for everything that he did, not realizing that he was really talking to Governor Newsom, but he thought he was Josh Tomorrow. Come on, just stick. Just stick. Jesse says, I don't care as long as they bring back live entertainment. Yeah, I mean, dude, like my raft ride from Tom Sawyer Island the other day when the bootstrappers were on the raft, like, dude, live entertainment's where it's at. I hope they bring that back. Josh Shoemaker says, please bring back quality food at Disney World. I mean, I don't know. When I go to Disney World, I'm pretty impressed by the quality of the food. I will definitely say that. Like, my wife has dietary restrictions, and it's amazing how much more food she can find for her dietary restrictions when we're at Walt Disney World than she can at Disneyland. Like Walt Disney World has so much gluten-free stuff for her diet, you know, and she really struggles. Like at Disneyland, whenever they drop like the new food festival menus and all that stuff, it's rare. Like there's maybe a couple of items, and they're not even fun items that she can eat. Now Nate's talking about the politics we need to get into. Please get rid of the reservation system. Yes, get rid of the reservation system. It's only there for the corporation. It's not there for the people. Strongly agree with that one. That's what I'm talking about. In NRI, I can't say the rest of the name. As a kid in the 70s, so many memories of the many different live acts that roamed the park back then. Yeah, dude. There was, I mean, I didn't go to the park. I can't be like, yeah, dude, I didn't go to the park then. But over my tenure of the parks, I remember a time when there's a lot more live entertainment. And the live entertainment really is like just so good. Josh Shoemaker says, what are your thoughts on adding more non-IP attractions versus IP attractions? So that's a hard one, man. The non-IP versus IP is really a hard one, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to guess what fans want. And I think fans think they want original stories in the park until they get a story that's not a story they recognize, and then they go, I don't know why they didn't make this Indiana Jones. I believe that the park would have always had IP in it if the IP existed. Like Pirates of the Caribbean, you didn't know who those pirates were when it opened, but they were pirates. The intellectual property was pirates. It had to have something inside of it that people would recognize and get excited about. Now, years later, we all love those pirates. And so it became IP over the journey that it went on. Like a haunted house is a property or an intellectual property. You understand what ghosts, goblins, and the occult is. You just didn't know that crew, but now you do. So now Madame Leota is an IP, an intellectual property. So my question for you guys is, let's say they built a new haunted attraction, right? Let's say when Disneyland Ford comes together, they build a new haunted attraction and it has a whole different vibe in it. Would you be like, oh, cool, new ghosts, new stories, new song? Or would you be like, well, I kind of wish this had some sort of tie to the Haunted Mansion? You know what I mean? Like, I think that if in a perfect world, if you could just make a new IP like Figment, you know, I've been studying a lot on Figment and listening to tons of interviews of Tony Baxter talking about Figment. And you look at really what a brilliant concept Figment was and how it was a word that just existed in the domain that didn't have a visual counterpart to it. And he was able to tie that together. Figment is like an unreal, like, you know, branding something in the parks that now is its own IP. But what happens when you don't get it right? You know, like forever, when Duffy, for example, when Duffy was in DCA, because people didn't know who Duffy was, they didn't care. And it was a failure. I mean, DCA 1.0 is kind of like, well, what happens when you don't put property or IP into things? You know, like, is the Zephyr your favorite ride? Is Jumpin' Jellyfish your favorite ride? And I know those rides typically just kind of suck because they're off the shelf rides. But if the Zephyr was themed around the Rocketeer, don't you think it would make it way more popular? I mean, it's the same ride. The Zephyr over in DCA is a shit ride. But If that got a Rocketeer refresh and they played Rocketeer music on it and they had like a Rocketeer animatronic in the queue or a Rocketeer sign, I guarantee you it would instantly become popular because now it would have intellectual property associated with it. So I know I'm kind of giving you a political answer when I don't want to talk about politics, but I kind of think that it's an easy thing to say we want new stories, but what fans are really saying, I think, when they say that, and tell me if I'm wrong, we want another Haunted Mansion, we want another Pirates of the Caribbean, but those are magic, those are lightning in a bottle, because nobody's going, we want another America Sings, not American Sings, we want another Carousel of Progress. Like, there are original stories that they told that people didn't latch onto, didn't gravitate towards. So something to think about. Yeah, Grizzly River Run is not IP, and I've never wrote it. Don't really plan on writing it any time. I need IP. Yeah, I get what you're saying. John says, I'm fine with IP, just not force where it doesn't belong. And that's what you're talking about, John, and I agree with you. You're talking about storytelling, right? If the intellectual property tells a story and there's a reason why it's there and it makes that experience better, then that's good use. But when it's crowbarred in, when it doesn't need to be there and it feels like gross marketing, I agree with you, John. That's when it goes the wrong way. Tyler, what's up, homie? All right, can I get Tyler on the wall? Tyler's on the wall, baby. My problem with IP only is when you're cutting what Walt Imagineers, hold on, is you're cutting what Walt slash Imagineers limitations. I thought you were saying two different words there. I'd be open to hear people out may work. I'd be open to hear out may work better for the better. I'm having a little bit of a hard time reading that, bud, but keep in mind that all the projects that Walt and the Imagineers worked on back in the day, it did have some sort of concept tethered to it. Frontierland was about cowboys. Then it evolved into Davy Crockett, who was the cowboy. I mean, I know he's not a cowboy, but the Wild West figure that Disney owned. Tomorrowland had, Rocket to the Moon. And that was about space travel and NASA and the future, which is kind of an IP. There wasn't a movie for it yet, but it was that. So it's definitely an interesting debate, and I think it's a very fun, like, intellectual debate. And I think that what people are really saying is we just want hits, and it's impossible to always write a hit song. Yeah, I agree with you, Shoshana. World of Color, Shoshana says, not interested in World of Color being a commercial for the next Disney movie. And I agree. Like, I feel like these nighttime shows, when they're just basically like watching DVD trailers or previews, I kind of zone out on them. I like when the World of Color shows or the nighttime shows actually have a story that is incorporated into them. When it's actually telling you a story and there's a reason why you're seeing all these highlight reels because they're taking you someplace emotionally. The original World of Color is very, very, very well done. Many of the World of Colors that have come afterwards from the festivals and stuff, it just feels like I'm watching DVD, trailers like stitched together. Disneyland the show is using the park as IP, says Raccoon CD. Yeah, I mean, that's the other thing too. Disney, I think, has an amazing opportunity to use their own story as IP, but they're not good at it. Like Leslie Iwerks has the beat on how to tell the Disneyland story and not make it feel gross. Typically, when the company tells the Disneyland story, they make it feel gross. They just can't resist like overplaying their hand and making it feel like ick marketing versus great storytelling. And I've said this several times. Once I was at a Leslie Iwerks book signing, and I for the Imagineering story, and I just told her, I'm like, Disney's known as the world's greatest storytellers, yet they have never figured out how to tell their own story. And I told her with the first Imagineering series that she did is like, I think on record, this is the greatest telling of the Disney story that exists. And it's amazing that they just can't get out of their own way when they try to tell their story. Richard Davis says Test Track avoided IP, but did it because it had a sponsor, General Motors. So the actual IP of the attraction was General Motors. But because General Motors is a lot like Frontierland's about cowboys or Adventureland's about adventurers, you didn't quite see the IP in there because it wasn't like about cars, which basically Radiator Racers is the same type of attraction, just with more technology behind it. So, yeah, the reason why they didn't theme it around like Herbie Goes Bananas is because General Motors paid for the attraction. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting that all of a sudden, when a sponsor gets on board, like the Journey to Imagination, it's like because Kodak's flipping the tab, then we can just write our own story. But that's also because, and hear me out, they don't want to give Kodak one of their IPs any sort of ownership of it. So a lot of times when you see a sponsor involved with an attraction, they kind of keep the two separated, which they didn't do that with Enterprise and Tron at the Magic Kingdom. So yeah, this is a fascinating topic. We could just go back and forth like all night long on this. I would love a Rivian ride. I would love a Rivian ride because I own so much of that stock that anything that will make it get out of the trash can would be awesome. So yes, please. Rivian presents Utopia. Let's go. Let me read Chicken's message that he sent me earlier through the super chat. And he was polite enough to say, hey, you can just get to this when you're on to that part of the show. And guys, I hope that I didn't come off negative tonight or pouty or angry. And I hope that I kind of gave you my idea of just what I'm feeling with all this. But I really mean like, I really am trying to make this a safe space. Not only for you guys, but for me as well. Because I need a safe space right now. Okay, his question earlier that he super chatted for, you can save this for the Q&A, but what is one thing you'd like to see tomorrow fix, introduce, or completely erase from Disney? And then he says, ready for your spicy takes. And I don't think that I showed up with spicy takes tonight, and I think that's what people were wanting, but I didn't want to come on here and be the rage guy. I mean, I think quite simply what Josh Tomorrow could fix, and would be the ultimate thing that would get him instantly on everybody's good side, would be to get the parks back to where they were. Like, imagine that I'm Josh Tomorrow, or I'm in charge. And I go, all right, friends, I'm running the ship right now. And the first thing I want to tell all of our amazing fans that live around the world is we've heard you. We understand your frustrations. And starting today, the park is going back to the way that it used to be. No more reservations. We're bringing entertainment back. And we're going to focus from now on doing things that are fan first. You don't have to say like we've been doing Lightning Lane and budgeting and all this stuff, like, because they're not going to get rid of Lightning Lane. They're not going to go back to Fast Pass. They're not going to turn off a faucet of money, and they're not going to admit defeat. But if they just said we're going to start rebuilding the parks with a fan first mentality, and if that was their motto, and I know they use the word guests instead of fans, but I don't want anybody to be a fan of me, but I'm a fan of Disney parks. Like I want you to be my friend. I guess it'd be cool to be a friend of the Disney parks, but I think fan works in this. But if they had a fan first mentality, we will start implementing things in the park if we believe that it benefits the fan first. I just think something like that would go really, really far. And admitting that the reservations suck, and everybody knows that they suck, and everybody knows that it takes the fun out of the park, and everybody knows that it creates a false sense of demand. Let me explain to you why the reservations have done exactly the opposite of what we were promised they're going to do. All right, Tyler, I'm getting you on this board. One toss. Damn. All right, 2 tosses for Tyler. Come on, dude. Maybe I'm too far. All right, that's the problem. I'm hitting it too far and they're hitting sideways. Tyler, sorry for the chopped up text. Super chats are always change my wording. Basically, I was just stating you should never cut out imagination just for simple, easy cut and paste IPs. I agree with you. When you see something like the build out of Zootopia over in Shanghai, or you see what some of these World of Frozens look like, they're IP based, but there's a lot of really cool storytelling and imagination there. Like, I'm very excited to get to see my first ever Arendelle because they look so beautiful. And I know that it's, based around a story that a lot of kids love. And I don't see anything wrong with that because it's also based around like a beautiful part of the world and they look so good. So I agree with you. Like, I think we're all on the same page where we just want really good stuff. And we hate when IP is used for marketing. We hate when it's a lazy, cheap way to get there. And also when it's a lazy way to pull our heartstrings. Like, we love this place because of the imagination that it exuded at one time and because of the storytelling. So when you take that out and it's just all like products on a shelf, it ruins a lot of the magic. And I think a lot of people after a couple of decades are really starting to see that, right? Raccoon says the company has fumbled using and promoting their interactive narratives. See video games, imagine an original Disney made video game. Hell, they own LucasArts. Yeah, I mean, I'm the wrong person to talk to about the joint venture that they did with Fortnite and Epic and all that stuff. Like, I see where they're going there. I have probably a very unpopular opinion about the collaboration with OpenAI. Was going to make a video about it, but I'm like, you know what? My opinion is so unpopular. I just don't feel like reading comments all day long that are just, ripping me apart. So yeah, a lot of this new technology and where things are going is definitely, we're definitely stepping into a weird world, and then we're getting there way faster than any of us would have thought. Nathan says, let the people get off the phone and just enjoy the vibes. Being on your phone kills a lot of the enjoyment. I absolutely agree with you. This is the person I feel bad for that has the phone out at the Disney parks. I feel bad for the parent that has to have their phone out so that they can book the meals and book the lightning lanes. But what happens when you have your phone out? You still get push notifications that are coming through, right? Like, no matter what you turn off, something's still going to slide through. And I feel bad for the parent that when they're at the parks, they get that little look, of something that comes down from the top of their screen, or just because of muscle memory, I'm going to go ahead and check over on my work email. And I hate that because you have to have the phone out to navigate the park, that somehow the troubles outside of the berm are going to penetrate your day at Disneyland. And so now you're like, oh man, this asshole in marketing, like this, he knows I'm at the park with my kids. Why is he asking for this by the end of the day? And it used to just be like, if somebody's like, hey, I need this by the end of the day, I'm not checking my email. I'm at Disneyland. I'm not looking at my phone. I'm at Disneyland. And then because you see it and you're a good employee, you have the guilt of like, hey, Mitchell, just reminding you, I'm at Disneyland with the kids today. I'm not going to be able to get that over to you till I get back in town on Thursday. And then because Mitchell's a jerk off, he's just like, oh, I was just hoping you could really send it because we need it. You know how it is. There's just some people that it's almost like when you try to create barriers, they try to break them down because they're just those type of miserable people that also want you to be miserable. So I hate that the phone creates a digital leakage into the rest of your life. And that's who I feel really, really bad for. I was going to explain to you guys why reservations are bad. So originally the reservations were to keep us all safe, right? I'm sure you have your own opinion about that. Don't want to get into it. But originally, the reservations were there to manage the amount of people that are at the parks. Now, the reservations are there to do a couple of things to manage Disney's expectations of how many people are at the parks. When they look at the reservations, they can figure out what they need to do for staffing, what they need to do for ordering. They have an idea of how many people are going to be there. The reservations also allows them to put people into buckets, right? We want this many people paying full price. We want this many people using the value ticket, and we want this many people at the different levels of our magic keys. So basically, when you're walking around Disneyland, know that everybody around you on Main Street paid a different rate to get there because there's so many different ways to get inside of the park. So because no two people or not everybody is paying the exact same rate, they want a really diverse amount of people in there so that the earnings for that day is balance. So the reservations are about balance. But this is what the reservations do that are actually why the parks are so busy right now. And I've explained this before. It used to be you got your pass and go, oh, awesome. You know what we should do? We got this pass. We're going to go to Disneyland once a week. And then life gets busy. The kids have sports. You have things to do at work. Your parent gets sick. You got to do things. And you're like, man, we bought these passes and we haven't been to the park for like 3 months. But what the reservation system does is people go, we're going to go to the park. Once a month or every 2 weeks. And so you go in there and you get your 4 reservations. And then when one gets up, you put another reservation in there. And because you get penalized if you don't go, it forces people to go to the park more often because it creates a scarcity mindset. If I don't get my reservation, I'm robbing myself. I'm stealing from myself if I don't get this thing that I bought. And so that false demand is why the parks are so slammed. They used to have more annual pass holders and the park was less busy because there were so many people that bought it, forgot about it, and didn't prioritize it. But now that it feels limited edition, now that it feels like buying a blind box toy, people are so obsessed with getting I get 5 reservations, I got to line all 5 of them up there. And so really, that is one of the biggest reasons why the park is so slammed out. And if for any other reason, that's one of the reasons why they're never going to get rid of the reservations. They have figured out the ultimate marketing tactic to make something that really has an unlimited supply feel limited supply or like a limited good. And so that false demand is why they're making so much money through the parks. So as much as we all hate reservations, I would be shocked. I mean, literally shocked if they ever went away at Disneyland. So when you think about it that way, it doesn't make sense for us. We all know why it sucks because it used to be good and awesome to be out with your friends and go, you know what? Let's just go to Disneyland and let's just go there and just ride like 2 rides and get a popcorn and sit on a bench. Can't do that anymore. All the spontaneous fun has been taken away. The parks now, when you explain it to somebody who's never been there before, it's like explaining to them like how to, enroll into Harvard. They penalize you that if you don't show up, John, after so many no-shows, then you can't use your pass for 30 days. Which is really crazy because they're basically saying, hey, even though you got the measles, you got to come down to the park today and at least scan in or you're going to get in trouble. Raccoon says, the irony of trying to control experience makes guests have collective lesser experiences in general. Makes it not worth going. I mean, I do think that there's a certain amount of like when you try to over control the situation, you do break the fluidity of the situation, which what we used to call the Disney magic. All right, let's go. Is it Raccoon? Oh, Raccoon's on the wall twice. Come on. Come on. I need better magnets. Somebody send me that Amazon link if you know of a better magnet. Yeah, you get penalized. So even when we were going through COVID, if you were sick, everybody's like, if you're sick, stay home because you don't want to get somebody else sick. But at Disneyland, you got to at least go there and scan in. I mean, granted, I think it's like 2 or 3, strikes in like 30 days. So you'd really have to be kind of like abusing the system. but you have to go and scan in. And here's the other thing that's just ridiculous is there's no day of cancellation, or at least there used to not be. So if you have that reservation and you don't cancel it the night before, you have to go to the park or you get a penalty, or at least it used to be that way. I think it's still that way. Third time's a charm. I think that's when you get in trouble. The third time, is that what you're saying, Star Wars Mike? Tyler Drake says, I wish there was a military discount inside the park as well. Even 5% would be great. I mean, there used to be military tickets. That used to be a thing. Three misses in 90 days rolling average. Thank you, Lisa. Why should they care if you already paid for the magic key? Well, Dingus, because they've planned on you being there that day. And their whole scheme is they don't want people buying dates and not being there, because see, the reservations isn't to keep the park. See, this is where people get it wrong. People think the reservation is about keeping the park balanced so that it's not overbooked. It's the exact opposite. The reservation is designed to keep the park booked. The reservation is actually the thing that is making the parks the most slammed that they've ever been before. And also, because Disney now has the reservations and they know when you're going to go to the park, whether you're an AP or a ticket holder, that's why there's been more value tickets than ever, because they know how soft the market is going to be. So therefore, their algorithm can predict it's time to do a SoCal ticket. It's time to say, hey, get into the park for as low as $65. But what you don't tell that family is to get into the park for $65, you have to do at least 3 days. So it's not 65. It's now like what? It's $195, so almost $200. And every time that family goes, they have to pay $40 for parking. So you take the one person going to the park for 3 times, it's $200. The family pays $120 for parking. So you're at $320. Go ahead and add on the other family member. So for a family of 4 to do that value, go to the park for $65 a day. That ends up becoming basically, if my math is right, about $920 when it's all said and done. Go to Disneyland for $65. Cool. It's really going to cost your family almost $1,000. All right. I am going to wrap this up here and get off at the top of the hour. Yes, reservations started right after they opened up for COVID, and they decided to keep the system. Yeah, the reservations showed up because then it was to make sure that the parks weren't overly crowded and that you could social distance. But like a lot of things, like after 9/11, there were all kinds of rules that got implemented, and that's when I believe Homeland Security was invented after 9/11, and look how that's playing out right now. So, there's a thing about rules. When they show up, they're easy to implement, much harder to let go of control and power. So I don't think the reservations are going to go away anytime soon, or if ever. I know Disney World has created a much different rhythm with reservations, where if you're a pass holder, you don't need a reservation. You can show up any day, like past a certain time or whatever. And that there's still some stuff with Magic Kingdom because of its overall popularity. But yeah, Disneyland is really, really penalized because of how many local people go there. Corruption in the Kingdom. That's a great name for a video. Somebody made that. People would click. Richard says, how soon do you think it'll take until we can see if Josh is an ally or just monetizing the parks further? I think that really when he gets in, when he becomes the number one, there'll probably be some announcements, but things take a while. And I would say probably like 6 months in, we'll have an idea of where things are going. But I think our greatest indication is who gets put in charge of Disney parks and experiences. I think that's your biggest indication of who takes Josh's current job. But you know what? To end this on a positive note, I am excited that they did go with kind of a Michael Eisner, Frank Wells type of situation where they do have, two minds in there kind of working together on things. I think that that will be really, really good. I would be scared if Josh was trying to run the entertainment part of the business and the theme parks at the same time. I would also be a little apprehensive if, Dana was making decisions for the theme parks. So I think putting them in there with a firewall between their positions is a good thing to do. And we'll see who steps into the parks. But yeah, I think that I gave you my mindset on why I just feel too exhausted to really get into this. I want to talk about the parks. I want to talk about their design. I want to talk about Disneyland Forward. I want to travel all around Southern California and find all the places that built Disneyland. Like, for where we're at right now in society, I just want to focus on the things that make the park fun and give me personal escapism. And if I can go to a place like Wilmington Ironworks, meet that guy who's the great great grandson of the guy who opened up a company 100 years ago that would end up working on the Disneyland Railroad, and I can show people that little part of the story, and then he tells me like, oh, we also did something for Fantasmic and the Jungle Cruise boats. Like, that's where I want to be right now, because when you get into talking about all of this stuff, you get into all the other things, and it's not that I'm afraid to talk about that stuff. I just need a spot in my life where I don't have to think about it or talk about it. You know me. I am a brutally honest person. I never hold back from telling you what I really feel to a fault. And so I'm just kind of not censoring myself, but I just want to give you guys other things. OG55, theme park conductor, those dudes will just go in the minutia and all this stuff. They'll do 4-hour live streams and talk about this stuff and give you all the little details. So there are other people that will cover it from the fans' perspective. But for me, I just wanted to come in, address it, and just be like, cool. Like at this point in my life, really, I'm just like, cool. Another rich guy's running the ship. Let's see what he does. Like when you make that kind of money, you can sometimes tell yourself that you're for the people, or what the fans feel. But let's just be honest. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. When's the last time that Josh went to the park like a regular person? When's the last time that he had to book a reservation, went there not on a VIP tour, had to book lightning lanes, had to mobile order his phone, and manage his kids' or his friends' expectations? When's the last time he went to the park like a regular person? So kind of my, like, I don't care. It's just more of the same. It's just, one white dude's ego after another. Legacy. You know who can't worry about legacy? People who are worried about paying their rent. You know who can't worry about legacy? People that are worried that they're going to get ripped off the street tonight because they're not white. So it's kind of hard to get excited about what one guy is going to do, who's going to get a bonus that's more money than most of us will make in the next decade. It's hard to get excited about that right now. It's really, really hard to get excited about that right now. So what I can get excited about is the thing that's more in my wheelhouse: art, design, storytelling, passion, Walt Disney, escapism, my friends on YouTube, taking people on adventures, making people laugh, making people smile, making people see the world in a different way. All the things that, are relatively the free happiness moments that we have in our life. Thank you so much for showing up. I appreciate you all. Hey, if you see the world different than me, I appreciate that for you. And if you see the world different than me and you show up and you still want to be my friend, then that's awesome, because that's the way it's supposed to be. And that's the way that it always was. And what we do outside of the berm is what we do. But inside of the berm, you know what we are? We're fellow citizens of Disneyland. I appreciate you all. And I appreciate the votes are in. Tyler, Carl Jacobson, Double Raccoon, JSR Dunn. I think Tyler was a twofer. Chucky Chicken. Jay Harris, CKB. I appreciate my friends at Super Chat, and I appreciate my Magic Brickey holders, and I also appreciate everybody who shows up and watches the videos. All right, friends. Sorry if I was a downer tonight, but I talked about it. I did it. And now I move on down the road. Tomorrow, I'll be taking you to the Anaheim Ducks for Offspring Night. Anaheim Ducks had me out, gave me a media pass, got to film the Offspring, doing some really fun stuff at the game. Tomorrow, just all fun and Disney adjacent. Because as you know, the Ducks were once part of Michael Eisner's future or vision of where things were going to go. So I'll see you tomorrow with the vlog, and I'll see you back here in 2 weeks, because next Tuesday I will be at the Magic Kingdom with my friends out in Orlando for 10 days. And yes, this trip will yield some epic universe content. All right, guys. Good it wasn't a downer. Good it wasn't a downer. Just wanted to give it to you, Stu. All right, guys. I appreciate you all. Have a great night. Thank you for hanging in there with me. And, we'll do something funner next time when there's something funner to talk about.